If you have restless legs, or you know somebody that does have restless legs, and by that I mean somebody who can't sit still in the evening from probably about 5 o'clock, who every so often has to jump up and move around. They rub their thighs, or they rub their legs, the rest of their legs, or it might be in a different limb, maybe their arms, they rub them, they move them around. Then this video is for you or your nearest and dearest. And later on in the video, I will tell you how I stopped having those symptoms. So, where do I begin? I'm 67 years old, and when I was 55, I developed a really creeping, horrible pain that would build up in my thighs during the evening, not during the daytime. The daytime was fine. Excuse me. But in the evening, probably from about 5 o'clock, I couldn't sit down for very long. The pain would build up in my thighs, so much so that I had to either thump them, rub them, but most importantly, get up and move around. It drove me nuts. It was really painful. And it didn't just go on all evening, it went on all night. So I dreaded going to bed. I tried all sorts of things. I tried putting a wheat bag on my legs so that it was heavy. Actually, that helped just a little bit, something really heavy on your legs. But it didn't stop it. Then I tried ice packs, and actually that was, this is at bedtime, you understand, that was much more successful. So I bought some very large ice packs, they're about that big, and I'd stick them in the freezer until they were solid, and then at bedtime I would take them out and I would strap them to my legs, which sounds really odd, but it wasn't comfortable. In fact, it was really uncomfortable. The freezing just, God, it was so painful. But I didn't have to get up, which was amazing. And by the morning, they had thawed out. And anyway, in the morning, I didn't have restless legs. It was only after 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening that my legs became a problem. A really odd disease. So, I had gone to a lot of doctors privately to find out what was causing it. I had had needles stuck into my legs to test my nerve endings and if there was a problem with those, and there wasn't. I had been and had all sorts of therapies. I tried acupuncture. That didn't work. But in the end, it didn't seem like there was anything for me because nobody had a diagnosis. And I can remember going to hospital once, and my husband said to the doctor, my wife suffers from Restless Leg Syndrome, and he might as well have just rolled his eyes, and he walked away. He said, that's not a real condition. But I tell you, if you're suffering with it, it's a real condition, all right? In fact, now it is recognised. It's one of the most common movement disorders out there, aside of Parkinson's and essential tremor, which I have, by the way. because there was nothing out there for me and nobody knew what it was, I didn't know what it was. When I was walking around the house in the wee small hours of the morning, around about 2 a.m, one night I was standing at my dining table where my computer was, because I couldn't sit down. It just was not possible. It was not on the cards. So I stood at my computer and I was researching pain in my legs, restless legs, all those sort of hashtag words, whatever hashtag is. But I was searching and I came across a site called RLS-UK. And that was the Restless Leg Syndrome website. And as I read through all these people's stories, and I don't know whether they're still on there, but certainly I read through them, what took me by surprise was so many people sounded like me. One lady said she couldn't go to the theatre, she couldn't go to the cinema, she couldn't go on a plane because she couldn't sit down for long enough. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is me. That is my story. I have restless legs. Painful restless legs that drive me insane. Anyway, on one of their pages there was a questionnaire that you could answer and then tot up your score. And the score was from very low to its highest at 40, I think it was. And my score was, I think, about 35. I mean, it was high. So I thought, that's it. That's what I've got. In those days, they had a whole list of stuff that you shouldn't be taking because it makes restless legs much, much worse. And lo and behold, I was on one of the main contenders, and that was, I had been given Prozac, I think it's called fluoxetine, because I had got so depressed about not being able to sleep at night. My doctor thought he'd treat that. Little did I know that that was making my condition far worse than it needed to be. Every time I go back and say, I'm still walking around at night, the pain is terrible, I don't know what to do, up will go the dose. My symptoms got worse. And there are other things that make your symptoms worse, like not having enough B12. Who knew? So I didn't know all that then. I've done tons of research, hours and hours and hours of research into this condition ever since. So anyway, they did say that the particular drugs they recommended for treating the problem. And so I thought, right, that's it. I'll go to the doctor. I'll print all these pages off. I mean, I must have been the doctor's worst nightmare, Googling Dr. Google and coming back with a whole host of information. But I did know what I wanted. I just wanted not to have this problem. And I also found out there was a neurologist in London called Professor Ray Chowdhury, who dealt with movement disorders, and I wanted an appointment with him just to confirm my problem. He was at King's College Hospital. So, armed with these reams of paper, I went into the doctor and I said, this is what I've got. This is what I want. I would like to go on these particular drugs. The pain is dreadful. I don't have a night's sleep at all. And from 5 o'clock onwards, I can't sit down for any length of time. And bless him, he prescribed me Lyrica, which is pregabalin, and oxycodone for the pain. And within a very short space of time, the symptoms had gone. And I thought, oh my God, this was just heaven. I couldn't believe my luck that I was no longer suffering from the problems that I had been for the last few years. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years or more, I had stopped taking oxycodone, and now I was on morphine, 15 milligrams, twice a day, still the Lyrica, the pregabalin, and my symptoms were still under control. But I got to thinking that what happens if the morphine stops working? Then I have to go up, and I have to go up, and I have to go up in dose, and I didn't want to be a drug addict. So I thought I will do some more research. Anyway, I can't remember how I got onto the website that I did, but I found out about a drug called low-dose naltrexone from the ldnresearchtrust.org. And the only drop-down menu that they had in those days was one, and it said conditions, and you clicked on it, and this small list about that log on the computer screen dropped down, and it had several conditions, and one of them was Restless Leg Syndrome, and I thought, that could be amazing. So I contacted from the website information Dixon's Pharmacy in Glasgow, and I was sent a form by their clinic 158 to fill in, but I put in there that I was taking morphine for restless legs, and you can't take LDN if you're taking morphine. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to come off it. But I have to tell you, it really frightened me, because I had been in the depths of despair when in full flow with restless legs. There were times when I really, if I hadn't have had my darling boy, I would have handed in my dinner plate, so to speak, because life was an absolute nightmare, and you knew that tonight will be like it, tomorrow night will be like it, and every other night will be like it. Without respite, every night is going to be the same. You're going to be waltzing around your house, standing up, sitting down, standing up, and it was misery. So, armed with this information and knowing that I had to come off morphine, in those days I was on Facebook. I'm not now, but in those days I was, and I came across a website called, I think it was called NOPE. I think that means no opiates or something. And they advocate taking LDN in microscopic doses, and it still works in those doses, to wean yourself off the morphine. So you carry on taking your morphine, gradually reducing it, but you take these micro doses. Now, obviously, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get the LDN from Dixon's pharmacy because they'd already told me I'm on opiates, so I can't have it, and that's fair enough. Anyway, more research, more watching YouTube videos on LDN, and I came across a video by Dr. Bahari, who first started using naltrexone in low doses. And it was fascinating. I do believe Dr. Bahari is now dead, but, I watched this video about his story, and running across the bottom of the screen was a link to a website in Thailand. Now, when I told my husband I was going to order some naltrexone from this place in Thailand, he went absolutely ape. He didn't want me getting it from there because he said, and he is right, you don't know what you're buying. Could be anything. But it was on his video, and I thought, well, it can't be. I don't think he'd advertise something that was bad. So I took a risk, a big risk, but it was still a risk. Although I was going to take it in a microscopic dose. He still deemed it as a risk, but it was one that I was willing to take. And as I was the one with the restless legs, I thought, sod it, I'm going to do it because, well, I'm just like that, really. Anyway, so I sent off my money. It wasn't a lot. And I suppose within about 2 or 3 weeks, the naltrexone tablets had come through. Each one was 50 milligrams, so I only needed a teeny weeny amount. And on this website, on Facebook, or on this Facebook page, they gave you instructions on how to dilute it down. You had to get this special liquid from, I would have probably got it from the tap water, but anyway, I bought the water from the pharmacy across the road, and I chopped my tablet up into tiny pieces and measured it out as per instructions and diluted it in this fluid water, and then I kept it in the fridge so it didn't go off. Anyway, I got a little syringe, and I measured out the tiny amounts that I needed to take on a daily basis whilst reducing my morphine dose. So I cut my tablets in half, even though it says, these are slow release, don't cut them in half, but I had to cut them in half. And then I cut them in quarters, and gradually over 3 weeks, no, I think it was 2 actually, I reduced my dose to nothing, which was great, because then, I only topped up 1 tablet, so it was still worth it. So anyway, I reduced my dose to nothing, and then I got back in touch with Dixon's pharmacy and said, I'm no longer on morphine. Please can I have an appointment with your clinic 158 to discuss going on and taking low-dose naltrexone. So the doctor from Clinic 158 gave me a consultation over the telephone, and then I sent in all the proof that I had restless legs, which was a letter from Professor Chowdhury, because I forgot to say, by that time I'd been to see Professor Chowdhury. I had all the nerve testing on my brain, on my legs, on my arms, needles in my legs to check my nerve endings, etc. And he said my diagnosis was primary painful restless leg syndrome. Primary because I'd inherited it from my father. It can run in families, unfortunately. I think I would have preferred to inherit a car, but I got restless legs. So that was my diagnosis. And when I had this letter, then I could scan it into my computer and send it off to a Clinic 158. So I did that. And then I paid for my private prescription, which I think was at the time about £30. And then I paid for my actual medicine, which was in those days, I think it was £19. It's gone up to, I think, about 23 now, but still incredibly cheap. I mean, ridiculously cheap when you think how much money we spend on coffee. £4 for a coffee is just ridiculous when, you know, you're spending £23 for an entire month's treatment for something that is going to be life-changing for you. So anyway, I still had the symptoms of my restless legs, but not quite as bad because I was still microdosing on the LDN until my stuff came through. And about 2 weeks later, I got my prescription, the LDN in liquid form, through the post. They sent it through the post from Glasgow. So I started taking it, and I noticed that within 3 weeks, there was nothing. My symptoms had gone. It was beyond miraculous. I couldn't think that something so wonderful with no side effects could have stopped me from this dreadful disease. So anyway, Professor Chowdhury and his team phoned me for a consultation once a year to check how I am. Bearing in mind that when I'd been to see Professor Chowdhury, he had put me on dopamine. And I know that with most people that take dopamine, their symptoms may get better, but then they can start coming back, and so you up your dose, and you can up your dose until you get to a point where upping your dose will make you 10 times worse. And I do believe that's called augmentation, and you have to stop everything. And you just imagine going from 0 to 60, and then, or from nothing, no pain in your legs, to enormous pain in your legs, just like that. And there's nothing you can do. You don't get that with LDN. You don't get that with LDN. I've been on it years now, and touch wood, nothing. Each year they phone me up. Hello, are you still on LDN? Yes. Is it still working? Yes. I really do think you ought to go and have a look at this drug because it is amazing. Yes, we will do that in time. And I think, well, why not now? There are so many people out there, like I was, in misery. The darkest hours of their day, of their night, are after 5 o'clock, when all sorts of dark, terrible thoughts cross your mind because you can't see an end in sight. But there is. There is an end in sight. So, I've attached a lot of information in the Morbid with this video. everything that I know. If you have any questions for me, then please comment below. I will answer you. It's like a mission for me to spread the news that there is something out there for you, because I can tell you this for nothing, that when I was in the grips of Restless Leg Syndrome, if I didn't have my darling boy to support me, I would have done something terrible. It was that bad. My father, some years ago, died from pancreatic cancer. And I know that's a painful death. But when I visited him in hospital, the one thing that he was troubled by were his legs. He wanted to get up, but he couldn't because he was on drips and all sorts of things. But he was still rubbing his legs. He was in agony with his legs. And he couldn't get up because he was tied to the bed with all the tubes and everything. And that's terribly sad. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. When there is an answer out, he didn't know he had restless legs, but I knew he had restless legs. My daughter's inherited restless leg syndrome, but lucky for her, I could tell her what to do, and she has been on low-dose naltrexone for a number of years now, and it stopped them. So wasn't it fortunate that I was the forerunner? You wouldn't want that for your children, would you? Anyway, please share this video if you know anyone that suffered like I did, or you suffer yourself. Please look at the other information. And if you want to get in touch, please do. I will help. I will. Because if anyone knows what you're going through, I do. And it's hell. So please get in touch. Thank you very much for watching.